first time we played Silent Hill as a child and were clutching our PS1 controllers, to a chainsaw-wielding villager coming out of nowhere in Resident Evil 4. Horror games have been a staple in the video game industry for decades, and have only gotten scarier. I'll be your host, Sami Callihan, and this is the 10 scariest video games of all time. Hello horror fans, and welcome to the Horror Remix, where our world is a remix of everything horror. Before we get started, I would like to point out one thing. I will only be mentioning one game per franchise, and everything, as always, is subjective. These are my opinions, but if you don't like them, go down in the comment section and tell me what you think is the scariest video game of all time. Number 10, Dead Space. Originally released in 2008, combining sci-fi and horror, this game is renowned for its intense and horrifying gameplay. Set in the dark, claustrophobic corridors of the USG Ishimura, you're stuck on a mining spaceship overrun by grotesque necromorphs that keep you on the edge of your seat. This game expertly builds tension with its eerie atmosphere and nerve-wracking jump scares. Number 9, The Evil Within. Released in 2014, The Evil Within is a survival horror game developed by the creator of Resident Evil, set in a nightmarish world where reality twists and shifts unpredictably. The game follows Detective Sebastian Castellanos as he confronts a series of horrifying and monstrous creatures. With its dark and atmospheric environments and intense psychological scares, The Evil Within starts out hot and never lets off the brakes, which is sure to be an unsettling experience. Number 8. Dino Crisis. Released in 1999. Look, I know what you're thinking. Dino Crisis really isn't a horror game, and I call BS. To a 10-year-old me, this game was absolutely nerve-wracking. Developed by the same team behind Resident Evil, Dino Crisis is a legit horror game that terrifies players with a blend of survival horror and prehistoric threats. This game is set in a research facility overrun by deadly dinosaurs. The fear of being hunted by creatures that are both vicious and unpredictable makes every encounter a heart-pounding experience. Number 7, Fatal Frame. Released in 2001, armed with only a camera to capture and repel malevolent spirits, this game stands out as truly frightening. The game's eerie atmosphere and unsettling sound design set inside a haunted mansion with no weapons and just your camera. There is a constant sense of vulnerability as the ghosts become more aggressive the closer they get. The combination of psychological horror and limited resources adds a layer of tension that keeps players guessing what's in store for them next. Number 6, Alien Isolation. Released in 2014 and capturing perfectly the tension of the Alien film series. This game has a masterful use of suspense as you are constantly hunted by a relentless and intelligent xenomorph. Set in the confines of a space station with the xenomorph's unpredictable behavior, you're forced to choose stealth rather than direct confrontation, which heightens the sense of tension. The game's emphasis on survival and fear sets this as a great entry into the Alien franchise. Number 5, Amnesia, The Dark Descent. Released in 2010, this game, renowned for its immersive atmosphere and deep psychological horror, adding a sense of dread by plunging players into a dark castle where every shadow and sound heightens the feeling of vulnerability. There's also a lack of combat options, which forces players to rely on stealth and avoidance. This amplifies the tension as monstrous entities relentlessly pursue you, all while it erodes the protagonist's mental stability with the innovative sanity mechanic. Number 4, Blair Witch. Released in 2019, this game is immersive, taking you out of your living room and directly into the Black Hills Forest from the Blair Witch Project movies. A psychological horror experience that uses a first-person perspective to heighten the sense of fear as players explore a dark and oppressive environment. Filled with unsettling visuals and the combined menacing presence of the Blair Witch, this game creates an atmosphere of constant paranoia. Also, the use of a dog companion adds an emotional layer to this game, making the sense of fear and loss that much more impactful. Number 3, Outlast. Released in 2014, is set in an abandoned psychiatric hospital while you're in a first-person perspective. Known for its terrifying jump scares, especially while you navigate the dark with the use of a night vision camera. This game is an absolute unforgettable horror experience. Being chased by deranged inhabitants of the hospital with the combination of disturbing imagery, the constant need to hide or escape ensures this game a spot on the list. Number 2. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Released in 2017. There is a ton of Resident Evil games in the franchise, and I know this pick on my list may be a bit controversial, but from pure horror and scare standpoint, RE7 is by far the scariest due to its first-person perspective. As you step into the shoes of Ethan Winters, from the start where your beloved wife, Mia Winters, attacks you, to the game's terrifying atmosphere, which intensified by the grotesque and disturbing Baker family. You feel like you've been transported into one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies rather than a Resident Evil game. From the beginning to the end, this game is such a wild ride that fills in many plot points of Resident Evil lore. And number 1, Burger King. Big Bumpin'. Not! Although the Burger King might be absolutely terrifying, your number 1, Silent Hill 2. Originally released in 2001, I still remember this game vividly as I hid under the covers with the lights off as a freshman in high school. A fog-shrouded town and nightmarish monsters that are symbolic of deeper themes. This game is often considered the scariest video game ever made due to its amazing blend of psychological horror and emotional depth. It delves into the main character's troubled psyche, creating an unsettling atmosphere that is both eerie and profoundly disturbing. Even in the digital world, this game feels personal and inescapable. The haunting and complex narrative ensures that the fear is not just from what is seen, but from what is felt. That and so much more is what, in my opinion, makes Silent Hill 2 the scariest video game of all time.